So Helen and Debbie from Benchmark Collective, I wanted to chat to you today about exhibitor retention, as you are the go-to experts within the exhibition industry. I thought you'd be the best place to join me in this discussion. So for anyone who doesn't know Benchmark Collective, could you just give us a little bit of background on your business and experience and introduce yourselves quickly?
Yeah, hi, I'm Debbie from Benchmark Collective. I'm one of the 4 directors, and I'm not introducing Helen, but Helen is one of the other directors here. And we run a sales consultancy business in the events industry. So we support with on-site rebooking and remote sales projects.
Yeah, hi.
Over to you.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm Helen, as Debbie said, one of the co-directors at Benchmark Collective. And yeah, we're obviously really interested in this topic of conversation about retention levels as well, because it really impacts on us on how we do our jobs on a daily basis.
And it's fair to say that you've witnessed how sales have evolved in the last X number of years. So what, in terms of exhibitor retention, what are the significant trends that you're seeing for 2024, and how have these trends evolved over the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do week in, week out. We're in front of thousands of exhibitors face to face and on the phone every month. And it's quite obvious, I suppose, to say that the happiest exhibitors are the people that rebook. But it also is relevant in terms of their retention. Like if they're a retention client, then they tend to be more ready for a rebook conversation than someone who's exhibiting for the first time, obviously, because they want to see it, they want to feel it and experience it. So yeah, retention, I would say, generally speaking, is in decline across most events that we work on. There are exceptions. We work on some really growing events where retention isn't the issue. It's actually just the proportion of new clients because they're growing so much each year. But yeah, they're generally in decline. I think the typical number probably is somewhere between 30 to 40% retention levels that we're seeing at the moment. And back in the day, pre-pandemic, that would have been more like 50, 60%. So everyone's working harder to get growth on their events. So yeah, I suppose we're well and truly out of the post-pandemic boom where everyone got really excited and wanted to go on site and be with people. And I think people now are making much more considered buying decisions in terms of in-person events, whether this is the one for them, whether this is where they should spend their budget. So that makes our conversations, much more consultative. You really have to get underneath the skin of it. Rebooking is an art. My phone's beeping.
No, I think just to finish that off, it's really the events we see doing well at that is they're really fulfilling the needs of the audience, and they're standing by what they promise in terms of exposure and the experience right from the start of the sale through to the end of the event, and well beyond the doors closing as well. So after the event as well, how can that return for that customer keep going?
Yeah, and that's really feeding into some of the data that was published last year by Explory, Exhibit Leaders Insights report. They said that, well, their angle was that exhibitors are really feeling the cost of exhibiting, with 82% planning to exhibit at fewer in-person shows, and exhibit-related costs are a factor in that decision. They're pointing to exhibitors, that is, venue, contractor fees, and exhibition organizer fees for the reason of increasing costs. Obviously, that puts organisers in such a tough spot. Whether that's true or not, this is the perception of the exhibitors. When it comes to rebooking, does that data reflect the conversations that you're having on the show floor?
Yes, yeah, it does mostly. So I think, increased costs and objections relating to cost have always been a common thing in a rebook conversation when we're at every event. And that's kind of a dominant objection that we have to handle on a regular basis. But, it has become more challenging in recent times because a lot of these companies are on really restrictive budgets. They're working to tighter margins now, deciding which events they're going to be keeping within their portfolios. And so, that does make rebook conversations that much more challenging than they were before. There's a lot of hidden costs in an in-person event. It's not just straightforward, here's what you're getting for your buck. So we do see that those doing well with handling this situation are the ones that perhaps are looking outside of just square meter rates and increases in those. That's just really a fraction of the investment that exhibitors make. So we're seeing clients leaning towards package selling to kind of help mitigate that problem. And we're finding, we're having to talk about value proposition in a bit more of a broader spectrum. So I guess
is that the sort of specific strategies that you would advise for organisers for 2024?
Yeah, I think you have to look outside the box of like traditional, as I say, turning up to an exhibition, popping up your shop and hoping that it goes well. You need to look at other ways to offer your customers that opportunity and chance of brand exposure. So if that looks like within their package that there's some kind of speaking opportunity or some kind of other branding exposure on the floor that is tied into a certain package, then I think some of those events that are coming through, some of those younger events that we're seeing coming through and taking that approach to their value propositions are probably doing quite well at the moment.
Prices are going up. They are going up, but it's being really transparent and open about that and more consultative in the sale. I think the package thing works, and we do advise it because it's more transparent for your customers. They know what they're going to get, but you don't have to package it. But you do need to spell it out to them. In that point of sale, it's kind of this is what it's realistically going to cost you. We're on the floor, someone wants to switch from shell to space. We're like, okay, it is going to be cheaper in this conversation, but bear in mind it's going to cost you $3,000 to $5,000 a square meter, depending on how excited you get, or more, to build something. So they value that consultancy, and I think that's it's not all about, you can absolutely put your prices up, and most people are putting their prices up in the conversations that we're having at the square meter level. But it is that consultancy, and another kind of part of this is helping them to understand how they're going to measure what they're getting back, because that's what they get on every other marketing medium, right, that they're going to use. But in-person events, it's like, yeah, okay, well, you're going to spend this, and I'm going to tell you it's going to cost you this elsewhere by the time you've got your furniture and all your passes and all that kind of stuff, and your hotels and your flights and all of that stuff. But what do you want for that? What are you expecting from you? Helping them to kind of understand what they're expecting and measure it makes our job a lot easier, because we can then go along and say, okay, this is what you wanted. Have you got it? It's an honest, well, actually, we've had some good conversations, and it's that as much as it is trying to kind of like make the pricing clear and simple, I think.
Yeah.
But it's also about preparing the proposition early as well, and starting to lay the foundations even before someone like Benchmark has come on site to help you with the sales process. So defining what it looks like, what the Rebook story looks like, and delivering the communication that you will be given X opportunity and here's the benefits for you. Starting that conversation early with exhibitors so that they understand the reasons why some of these increases are coming in, and they can then in turn take that back to their internal board and get the ball rolling in terms of what's happening, what the increase is going to be, why it's going to be, what's improved at the event, what are they going to be promising to deliver on, and they can then start at measuring whilst they're there against what they've been promised, if you like. So it helps.
It's very rarely, I mean, it does happen obviously, but it's very rarely just a price objection that people don't want to rebook for. Very rarely. So this research is right. People are concerned about price, but if your event is the event that they need to be at, then they do they expect some kind of increases. But that transparency and actually making them, they're more likely not to be a retained customer because they don't feel loved than they are because your prices have gone up. That's what we see.
That's really interesting. So really investing in that customer success. I mean, it's from a tech point of view, that's what they do on tech platforms. It's all about customer success from the get-go. It's not customer service, it's customer success, helping your customers have the best successful event. That really feeds into that as well.
Yeah, understand what it is they want. Like, they don't spend 15,000 with us this year ultimately, and then just rock up and put your pull-up banner up and hope for the best. That no one would do that, would they? Loads of people do that. They do it in every event, every sector, every territory we go to. So it's really, whose responsibility is that? Ultimately, if you want a high churn and keep working harder and harder to grow, it's easier, isn't it, to just look after your retention customers, and that's where your true growth comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. How can event technology, obviously FFAIR's in the event technology space, so how can event technology be leveraged to enhance exhibitor retention, and what pain points does event tech need to solve in order to support exhibitor retention? Obviously there's lots of tech out there to help exhibitors have a better time, but specifically on the retention side.
Well, there's lots, isn't there?
Make it easy. Make it easy for them to organise their participation. I think we hear quite a lot on the floor, like how difficult the journey's been for some of these marketing managers in the hot seat, from the close of contract, the agreement of the contract, through to like turning up is always quite a rocky journey sometimes for them, and we're trying to like mitigate that objection and say and understand it and listen to what it is that's been hard for them and where it's been clunky in the operational side, so that we can feed that back in and try and improve that journey for them next time. So we're always sort of hearing some objections around the clunkiness and of their journeys.
It's trying to give them keep it simple. We always wheel out in our sales training, we wheel out this quote from Brent Adamson at Gartner. I don't know if you've heard it, and it says that the single biggest challenge for our customers is not selling, it's actually their struggle to buy. And that's true. We use it in the Rebook world all the time. It's like you've got your customers there, but actually event tech is part of that. I think sometimes there's so much tech. You'll have an app here, you'll have a platform there, you'll have a floor plan there. It's giving them one place and making that experience seamless. And actually, I believe as well as the tech, it is actually having someone to guide them. And I know that's not a popular train of thought. It's all very much, the tech can do it. It's all very intuitive. But we see, particularly for first-time clients, that is the risk time. They've committed. They're going to come for the first year. Holding on to them into their second year is the hardest challenge. And that is mostly from what we hear about them feeling guided, them feeling helped through the process, because they're completely clueless. They don't do events every week of the year by any stretch of the imagination. So things like, organising all their elements of their stand, and then some of that measurement stuff we talked about, what are you trying to achieve? To me, that's the pain point. It's like, and I don't know that we, in our experience, have ever seen anyone get it completely right. There's always, the big guys are looked after by people.
Yeah.
Anyone mid-range downwards can just crack on.
Yeah.
And I think, and
they'll get a flurry of emails, and then they don't know what to prioritize.
From 4 weeks out, the manual goes live. They've got emails flooding into their email. They're like, what is this? And we try to make the rebook process consultative. So pre-book is, increasingly everyone does it, because that's how you make your customers feel consulted. But we're trying to swim through the sea of inbox that they're completely full. Every single supplier, contractor is emailing them, trying to get them to buy something, and we're like, well, what about next year? It is a challenge. It is a challenge.
Yeah.
On the Rebook side as well, I think event technology is still quite a low tech affair, if you like. We definitely often think to ourselves, how can we streamline our job and make our job more streamlined, and in turn making it easier for a customer to sign in the moment as well. And sometimes we've just resorted going back to pen and paper in a way to make that process easier and quicker for the customer and for the organizer as well. Obviously there's a bit of back end work to do on that. When you're doing, you know, paper signing, you've got to go back to an office and transfer all that over to digital. So, you know, if somebody, you know, thinks about an event tech piece that would help us in a Rebook situation.
This is an appeal from the Rebook.
Yeah. Is there anyone out there that you know, there are, you know, some of the larger companies that have nailed that. They have, you know, we work on iPads and we digitally sign in the moment, and we can show someone in the you know, the floor plan digitally, everything in one consultation. And there are companies that obviously have the ability to do that. And you know, sometimes good old fashioned methods when you know, they're working well. So, you know, I'm not saying for every situation it needs to be high tech.
The thing with the sales conversation is tech can't disrupt it. It's got to support it. Like if you know, we've seen situations where the client year round uses, you know, a DocuSign or something like that, but actually, unless they're going to invest the time and the money to make that an in-person compatible platform, which is possible, but what you end up doing is emailing contracts to people and then trying to go back round and see if they've signed it because it's coming to, you know, that's not a solution. It's a huge pain point, as is the floor plan, you know, a digital floor plan. There are so many of those out there, so many. We're often asked which one we think is best. We always sit on the fence because there are some good ones, but actually in a sales lounge environment, it's partly about the hardware as well, right? It's about, you know, you can't put it on a little TV in the corner and expect to be able to book 300 exhibitors on it. It's just not so people get obsessed with going digital with something like that. And that's why you still see us in front of big floor plans with stickers and Sharpies, because it's actually more interactive, more usable currently than the digital solution. I mean, a dream, like the unicorn in the Rebook world would be a floor plan driven Rebook tool that a customer can literally touch on a stand. We can find them, it can give them a quote, they can move, you know, and actually everything is driven through the floor plan so that the contract comes out the other end, as you say, Katie, and it gets into their inbox and all their CRM in the background is updated. You know, what that would just be.
We have seen steps towards that, and we've worked with, you know, large touch screens on sales lounges, and you can see like exhibitors and attendees feel quite excited about seeing that kind of technology that they can get interactive with and touch and explore around the features. If you click on this, you know, will it show you a 3D version of that theatre and things like that. I think there's so much more we can like get creative with on and streamlining with, you know, digital rather than, as we say, like our old-fashioned floor plans on the wall with red stickers. Very well, very impactful, very impactful.
There's going to be a tech company out there that's going to jump on this.
They're going to hear this, and we'll collaborate with you.
Patent pending. In what ways can event organisers personalise the exhibitor experience to build stronger exhibitor relationships and improve retention rates? We sort of touched upon it before in the sort of pre-event and the consultative, but is there anything specific that you've seen that people can really engage exhibitors in this process?
I think this is obviously the biggest moment you have and the biggest opportunity you have as an organizer to build on relationships during like a pre-book and rebook stage. And you should be running at it and grasping every opportunity to enhance those relationships at this stage. So yeah, I mean, the account management side of things via the phone and video calls is great, obviously. And we talked about, you know, regular touch points with customers throughout the year, and finding that time to do that is super important. But ultimately, the human aspect of face-to-face selling is the final and probably the most important part of the engagement piece with exhibitors, and it just, you know, they appreciate it. As we said earlier, they appreciate being heard, being listened to in the moment. So I think organisers need to put more emphasis on ensuring that every exhibitor has a really great touch point at their events, because that's the moment when it's fresh in their heads. The feedback, the intel, the development of the show for the future is going to be vital.
Yep.
And continue that on throughout the year, as Hel said. You know, it's kind of, we hear a lot, well, you know, our sales team, their targets are this many calls a day, you know, this many new signings. It's kind of somewhere in there. And some of the bigger guys obviously have customer relationship teams, customer success teams that pick up that slack in the middle. But a lot of clients don't have that, and particularly don't have that post-pandemic, because it was unfortunately one of the first things to go. Then the sales team itself is smaller, and it's harder to sell, and they're working harder because their churn is higher than it should be. And it's this cycle. It's you know, actually having those touch points and picking up the phone and checking in on what you sold them, and is that still the right thing that you sold them, and do they need something else, and how are you engaging with your current customers to come and see you at the event, what marketing are you doing, all of that piece. It's really, to me, it's not rocket science, and it's not tech, I'm afraid. It is very much, you know, a person with 2 ears and 1 mouth listening to their customers. And it's as old as time, isn't it? And not very exciting to tell you in terms of kind of strategies at all. But it's been lost a bit, Katie. It has been lost a bit. And we all sit, don't we, on these things and go, oh yeah, customer experience, customer success, it's important. It's like trying to distill that down to what actually that means. It's like it means picking up the phone, or it means going to see them, or it means, as Helen said, having enough resource on your show floor in the moment to go and see how they're finding it, capture all that really key intel and some amazing, you know, testimonials and all those kind of things. It's like everyone's so busy running around, you know, particularly with small teams on independent shows, trying to make sure that the conference room's set up, or that registration's running, or that it's like, and their customers are just there trying to work it out for themselves. It's kind of
we call it FFAIR the Wild West, from contract signing to actually being on the show floor. It's the Wild West for a lot of exhibitors.
It is.
And we know, because we exhibit and you guys are obviously on the show floor, we know that still happens. It's not.
Yeah, some people have got a stallion and some people have got a donkey, and they you know, they're just clipping along wondering what on earth is coming at them. It's kind of, you've got to understand your customer from the outset, and then hang on to that intel, put it in your CRM, for goodness sake. Like, write it down what they told you, and then pick it up again. And I sound really patronizing when I say that, but we hear it so much. It's like, well, nobody called us. Actually, who is my account manager? Oh, actually, it's still the name of the benchy that booked them last year. One is their account manager. It's like, okay, so has anyone rung them in between? Oh no. And literally that's it. You're like, wow.
Well, that's a pool of retention right there in the post-show period for the salesperson, because we'll gain that valuable feedback in the moment on the floor for them. We'll capture that, and that should be inputted into, as Debbie says, CRM system, where it triggers a date for them to be calling the client and signing them. Because if we weren't able to sign them during the live show, then they have that you know, low-hanging fruit sat there for them post event in a timeline, in a pipeline to pick up. So that's, you know, contributing to even more attention if you're using that, using that way, that method of working.
And even if it's negative feedback, you know, if you don't get contacted again, you're never going to get that client back. Whereas if you tackle it head on,
all feedback is good. You know, we say to the exhibitors, give us the good, the bad, the ugly, because it's our job to let our organizing client know the truth. And to that, they tend to open up a little bit more to an outside resource as well than perhaps they would to their key account manager, if you like.
So what steps can organisers take to clearly communicate the value proposition? Obviously, we talked a bit about value proposition earlier, but what steps can they take, and ensuring that tangible return on investment? I think obviously we've mentioned it, but do you have a process that you walk through with your clients on the value prop?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, when we speak to clients, it tends, I mean, it can be 12 weeks out, it can be 8 weeks out, it can be 6 weeks, it can be, you know, some people do plan a bit longer than that. But one of the first things we're talking to them about is getting that rebook story together that Helen referred to earlier. So that means thinking about all the various elements of your event and whether you want to repeat them or whether you want to add to them. And they're trying to do that at a time typically when they're running to the finish line on sales as well. So that in itself, focus wise, is a challenge, as I said earlier. But it's not just thinking about, okay, well, here's a floor plan, let's just repeat it. It's like really thinking about, well, do we want to so having those strategic thoughts and in their minds at that stage, and planning everything, right? All their sponsorship opportunities, all of their, you know, packages, if they're going to put a package together, what they're doing with their new biz, you know, how are they taking them up a level? So kind of communicating the value prop to your exhibitors is about understanding it yourself first. And if you're going to just repeat, it makes actually for retention customers particularly, quite a stagnant kind of conversation. It's like, oh, so you're putting your prices up, floor plan's the same, there's nothing new, you're not telling me anything new. I mean, that's not what most clients do. They are doing exciting stuff, but they haven't necessarily got their heads into it early enough for it to form part of the rebook conversation. And actually, that sometimes is a reason why clients are nervous to do rebook, because they think, oh, we're not ready. And if I sell just, you know, 12 square meters here, I'm shooting myself in the foot to sell them something that I could do later, which is not the case. The ideal is to get your value prop together at the beginning.
Yeah.
And so you can speak to your customer in a consultative way and say, what are you trying to do in the next 12 months? Where else are you spending your marketing budget? Where do we fit? What, you know, is it about brand exposure? Is it about new customers? Is it about whatever it is that you're measuring it with? Back to that again. You know, and what have I got in my toolkit that I can sell to you? Because it might not be selling you 12 square meters. I might sell you 9 square meters next year, but you should do this brand exposure piece over here, or this thought leadership session there. And obviously content's another whole ball game. It's not going to be ready a year out, but actually the themes, the slots, the kind of opportunities, some of the customers we've seen do it really well recently have had almost like a kind of menu of items. So you take a level, a package level, and you pick one from here and one from here, and they kind of then really bespoke that value proposition for them and for their goals. And I think that is kind of a lesson for some of the kind of more established shows to really rethink that and think about how they put it in front of their customers.
Yeah, just don't get back on the same train again. You know, they've got, as a company, they've probably got different goals anyway. So it's about understanding their goals and the way they evolve year on year as well, and not just thinking, oh yeah, they sit in this pile of clients, then we've got our medium-sized clients and they sit there, and then we've got our, you know, sort of younger clients over here. Like some of those clients may have had huge investment from last year to this year, and it's about asking the right questions to understand that, then selling them the right thing for their needs. So yeah, making it easier, I guess, for them to buy from you is going to help with all of that.
And shake up that floor plan. Like sometimes clients kind of go, oh God, I'm going to have to change my floor plan, or oh no, we're moving hall, or we're moving venue. We're like,
it's a huge story. It's a great story. Yeah, we love that. We love those times. Yeah.
Because it's a real chance to refresh and to actually force the whole conversation somewhere new. And customers like it. They like it, and it's really hugely motivating for them to commit in that rebook phase early on.
Yeah. So looking into 2025, what is the key advice for organisers? Let's close on advice that you would give to really re-engage those exhibitors and try and get their attention up from 30 to 50%. What's your top key advice?
Okay, so I would say afford your sales team or whoever is owning customer success the time to do it. And in smaller organizations, that is the sales team. And our opinion here at Benchmark is that actually it should be the sales team. But you've got to kind of obviously adjust expectations and targets and KPIs and incentives to make that all hang together. But those guys should be owning it. And that will lead to consulted customers who feel loved, who want to stay at the event for a second, third, fourth year. So that would be my number one.
Yeah. What about you, Helen?
Yeah, I'd probably say use the Rebook as the chance to inform how the sales strategy is going to develop by gathering all of that client intel face to face. Take that forward. Don't just go, oh, that's brilliant, we got that, move on. Like, take that advice from your own customers' mouths and use it to inform the sales strategy coming up and how you're going to attack that. So it's another thing I'd probably say. Oh, pre-book. Yeah. That doesn't necessarily mean go in, pre-book now, buy it now, you know, like sell, push. Absolutely not. Like, it's just presenting an opportunity to the client early on to get a bit more momentum behind the Rebook when we get face to face. You know, yes, if you get some customers over the line, you get some influencers on the floor plan, that creates FOMO, excellent. But if we go in cold on an on-site Rebook with no pre-communication about what the opportunity looks like, how are they going to fast forward their decisions? How are you going to wade through those 7 stakeholders? I don't know, there's probably some stat out there that says more stakeholders are involved now. But how are we going to wade through that, the decision makers not on site kind of objection that we often get as well? So pre-book and preparation.
And it sticks, you know, Rebook stats show us that if a good focused pre-book is delivered, and as Hel said, it's not actually about getting contracts over the line during that phase. It's about making sure the message lands and that they go away and think about the proposition. We understand who's on site. You know, we really can frame the Rebook in a better way. But it sticks. You know, you're less likely to see fall off of any kind of significance during your cool off period if those people feel like it was a considered decision. You know, there are some schools of thought that you can just run around with a handful of contracts and just get people to sign. It drops off. We've seen that it drops off. So actually, if it's about retaining customers long term, that needs to be a considered approach.
Yeah.
I think the last thing to say on that is the language that you're using around the opportunity is so important. It can't just be surface level language anymore. Because exhibitors don't take kindly to that kind of scarcity language of, you know, book now or we're going to whip your location from underneath you and somebody's going to jump into your space, and they take it as a bit of a threatening and pushy kind of way of approaching them, and that's one massive thing to avoid, I'd say.
Well, it's a red flag for attention, isn't it? That hugely, because they you know, it's just not, it's not how you want to be. No one wants to be sold to at all, right? No one wants to be. But if they're taken into it in a considered way, I'm going to say that again, in a consultative way, then, you know, those incentives, those pricing incentives or location, they're all there in the Rebook story, and they're absolutely what's ultimately going to get them to make a decision. But you don't deliver it like that, right? That's over here. It's like, yeah, of course you're going to save yourself some money, but I want to get you to a point where you've decided this is the right event for you before we even get into, oh yeah, it's going to be, you know, you'll pay the same as you paid this year if you book while you're here, because that's the final step. It's not the leading headline of a Rebook conversation, or it shouldn't be. For all the reasons Hel's just said. Really, they feel like,
yeah, it's too transactional. Yeah. So absolutely echoing what Debbie said. Stay away from transactional type conversations and really get underneath the skin to understand what it is that they need to tick the boxes and understand the way they measure their return on investment and return on time.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for answering all my exhibitor retention questions and giving us insight into the topic of exhibitor retention. I know it's so important for organisers, and they're really, it's so pertinent to where they are at the moment. As you say, post COVID boom is gone, you know, we're riding that wave now. I can't believe we're even dropping the COVID word into this.
Wow, very retro, Katie.
Who'd have thought it? Who'd have thought it? So thank you really much. Thanks again to you, Debbie and Helen. Where can people find you?
Well, we're on LinkedIn. We have a Benchmark Collective page on LinkedIn, and we're also on Instagram. We like to post the odd fun reel from our travels around the world, around the globe, working on various different events. So yeah, look out for us on any of those platforms.
Look out for the yellow. It's all very yellow in our world.
It's fabulous. Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Katie.
Thanks, Katie.